Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to the Cognitive Podcast here at Sparkly episode 138, in which I am going so many directions, my head is just spinning. So hang on, buckle up, and get ready and see if you can follow along. It's just, I don't know what's going on lately. It's like the moon turned blue, and everybody's just a little bit, hyperdoodle. Anyway, so let's get on with it. If you go to the show notes, you will see a new and miraculous thing. My son, earlier this week, screamed, "Oh my gosh, the toilet, the toilet." We said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It's smoking." You can see a picture of that in the show notes. I'm very proud of him. We all laughed long and hard on that one, I must say. But apart from that, you should know that I welcome your comments, particularly if you'd like to comment on the smoking toilet. And beware, your toilet could do this too. I'm just warning you now. But at any rate, if you'd like to comment, you can do that on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, and on our group on Ravelry. Lately, I had a little problem publishing a note to the blog. That was from you, Tiny Shiny Things. We'll come back to that. So if you don't see it, that's why. But you can always comment over on our group on Ravelry. And I love your comments, and I've been enjoying them. Right now, let's see what else is going on. I'm not going to add you to any of my follower groups because I have so many robo accounts. It's interesting. They used to all be white guys with nonsensical names. Now they're pseudo-Arabic guys with nonsensical names. What is that about, Really odd. But you can always contact me through Ravelry or by putting a comment on the blog. Even if I have trouble publishing it, I will see it. In the warm thanks department, first and foremost, everybody who is supporting CFR 2023. I did post a message on Instagram, and I think it went across to Facebook as well, that was an update. And in more specifics, I'd like to thank our own Brenda, good stuff, for nudging me to post the actual room hours of the event. Now, this is because there's always a question, should people attending get a hotel room for Friday night or Saturday night or both? I vote both. I have to tell you, CFR, even up into Tehachapi, was only ever one day. But you wonderful people added on events that I didn't create. And so, let's face it, I had two people I can remember who were coming on Thursday so they could have an evening together to hang out because they didn't see each other that much. But I always showed up Friday afternoon right after I saw patients. And it was so happy. I have to tell you, when I look back on the 8 CFRs that have been, the happiest moment for me, weirdly, was when I walked into that hotel lobby on Friday and I saw the crowd gathering. And it's the most wonderful feeling of, I did it, this is really working, these people really came, we're all going to have so much fun, they all look forward to this. I mean, what a feeling. So yeah, I wouldn't miss Friday, but that's just me, and I don't plan to. I will be there Friday night and Saturday. I will be seeing patients on Friday, which means that I won't be finished working until probably about 5:30ish. So I won't be at the hotel till more like 6:30. So anybody who's making dinner plans for that Friday night, don't forget me, but I will be late. But I do come with a lot of information about local eateries. Also, this reminds me to say, the event room's hours, 9 to 5. That's the time we have that room for. It is important to say they offered it to me in the evening. I believe starting at 6. So you need to be aware. We may really have to be out of there, that they may have another event that evening. But since we'll all be all over the hotel, really will we care? And there's a big lobby with a lot of chairs and a big patio area by the pool with chairs and tables, so we will be great. I also want to thank our own Steffi Joe for correcting the link to the ComCal. I had duplicated the link to a different pattern. So that is now corrected in the show notes. Much appreciated, Steffi Joe. And Steffi Joe, we probably should talk about some design for buttons if you're still interested in that. I'm just a little bit at a loss, but I'm never at a loss for long. Just hang around, I'll fix it. And yes, I want to thank Tiny Shiny Things, whose note I could not somehow publish on the blog. But she points out that fried bread indeed does not go into the Scottish version of the traditional fried breakfast that you get in the British Isles. She points out it's a potato scone, or I think something else, but I can't remember what it was. All I can say is I went to a lot of really crummy B&Bs in the cities of Scotland and never got a potato scone, and I feel really cheated because, look, man, she's Scottish. She knows whereof she speaks. But if you go to the wrong B&B, yeah. Now, I have to tell you also that if you go to the right B&B, I went to this one B&B in the Orkney Islands on the mainland, and the woman, every time my traveling partner and I walked into her home, she whipped out the giant tea cart and fed us everything. Cakes, cookies, donuts, sandwiches, everything. We started hiding and sneaking in her back door so she wouldn't feed us. So believe me, it's not like Scotch people aren't going to feed you well at a bed and breakfast. But you got to be careful, because if you go to one that's a little too industrial, you won't get that potato scone. TST, I swear to you now, I want to come back to Scotland just to get the potato scone. The Cognitive Fiber Retreat, I know you've all been waiting. It is on for Saturday, November 11th, 2023. The event room is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., which means our vendors can set up starting at 9 a.m. We will not be in the room at 9 a.m. We want to give them a little open space to set themselves up any way they need to. We will be in the room, I would think, by 9:30 to 10. Vendors, heads up, just so you're paying attention. Just to review, the cost is $35 per attendee who wants raffle tickets. So adult or child, I don't care. If you're an adult, you have to pay the $35, but you get a raffle ticket. Not so bad. If you're a kid, you don't have to pay, under 18. But if you want a raffle ticket, you do have to pay. And also, you can find the PayPal address to send me your non-refundable $35. That is for all the attendees. For the vendors, the cost is roughly $35 worth of your product at retail value. So if you are bringing yarn, I want a really good skein of yarn. Somewhere between $30, $35 retail. If you're bringing something else, you can talk to me about it. I'm looking forward to that $35 worth of soap. I got to tell you, that's what I want to win in the raffle. I got to be careful what I say, because then if I win it, people, wonder. Okay, the hotel is the Courtyard by Marriott on Westinghouse Place in Valencia, California. Address and phone number are in the show notes. And also, I have their summary of our booking. So you can see that you can book your hotel room even as early as Tuesday, November 7th, and still get the discounted rate. And the last day you can book at our rate, by the way, is Wednesday, October 11th. So if you haven't booked your hotel, get in there and book. And you can call them, or you can click the link in the show notes. If you call them, tell them you need the Cognitive Fiber Retreat rate. Of the attendees, I think we have 33 people paid. And the nice news here is we have now broken even, just about. So that's very nice. So thank you. I have enough money to pay off what I've bought. Thank you. Thank you. From this point on now, it's discretionary fun. And I'm going to see, how many we get, because I've only got 33. I've got 17 people who have not paid. We have only one person on the wait list. The nice thing this week was we took in one of our waitlisted people, and we got, Lefty Rebel Knitter. You are now on the list at number 17, so Lefty Rebel Knitter, you can send me your $35. So the lone person on our wait list right now is Little Fence, alias Monica. Hang in there, Monica. We're going to get you in. I know we are. It just always works out this way. Under the possible vendors, I did put links to the people I have links for. No, I didn't. I have to add Alpenglow. I don't have her link there, but everybody's link who's a vendor, with the exception of Tina and her soap, the people doing yarny things. I do have links below down in the resources. And I will try to remember to upgrade to bring Alpenglow's link also up into the list of vendors. And that means I'm going to have to actually change that. It's not possible vendors anymore. Everybody is definitely on. I have not heard from our Tina, but I have faith in her. I know she's coming. So our vendors list, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful thing. I'm making it bold print and calling it vendor, not possible vendors. I'm so excited. Also, vendors, if you want to make a dedicated product for this particular event, so in other words, if you're a yarn dyer, you would make a specific colorway for CFR 2023. Absolutely. If you give me the information and pictures, I will post it in the show notes and I will blare it to the skies. As a vendor, you guys are all now friends of the Cognitive Podcast. You always have been, I suspect. But well, Alpenglow has been since the beginning, but you others are newbies as our vendors. And I'm so glad to have you all. I can hardly tell you. So you are now friends of the podcast, which means, yes, I'm going to work with your stuff and I'm going to promote it. And I want pictures and any materials you want to send me to help support your product. I want to promote you because you have been good enough to come to CFR 2023. Speaking of good enough, we also have Dizzy Blonde, who won't be there, but she did do a colorway for us. You can see a picture of it, the lovely sea glass colorway. And again, anybody else who wants to do a colorway, in the past, we also had one soap company who did dedicated soap. If you ask me what my favorite soap scent is, it's a toss-up lilac and or mint. Just in case somebody making soaps was wondering. I gotta say, I'm so pampered. Can you? What a pampered thing to say. Meanwhile, the mini skein swap is on. I have now 7 links with resources for patterns you can use. And I'm very excited about all of them, to be honest. And I just realized I'm missing 1 or 2 that I've come across, and I've got to remember to look them up and put them in there. But we got a lot of links for the mini skeins, so bring your mini skeins, 25 grams, about 100 yards. Fingering weight, please. The raffles, you know how you get your raffle ticket. You pay me $35. You also can bring a completed Mother Bear bear to Mother Bear specs. So you can't show up with a bear missing 1 leg and say, I'm going to do it this weekend. No, 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 no. At the sign-in, you have to have a completed bear. For every completed bear for Mother Bear that you show us at the sign-in, you will get 1 extra raffle ticket. Goodie bags, got to work on it. That's the project tonight, is to write up the letter that I send. That's easy. Once I do that, I just send it to any Etsy shop I can find. We'll see how that goes. We had, I don't want to name names or corner people, but we had an offer of buttons possibly. We had an offer of projects of a pattern of an original design. Lots of good things there. Classes, that's a story unto itself. If you're interested in teaching a class, let me know. Like I said, we're a little goofy on that because I'm not sure where our class space will be. But this is CFR. Nothing stops us. If we want to have classes, we're going to have classes. Oh, what you may say is on your hooks and needles. Gemma, let's get back to your stuff. Nothing finished this week. However, a lot of planning this week. That's why I feel like I'm running in so many directions. First off, in the stash toss, I now have 8 skeins in versus 40 skeins out. Where did those extra 4 skeins in come from? Glad you asked. So this week I was thinking about our vendors. And I was thinking, I really want to promote them. What do I have from them? And I thought, surely I should look in my stash on Ravelry. I thought, is it really possible I have no Oink and no Laser Sheep? Because every time I see them, I buy from each of them. So I thought, that's just plain weird. And it was. I do. I really do. I'm so excited. I have a BB-8 skein. It's called BB Sheep from Laser Sheep in the colors of BB-8 of Star Wars, recent Star Wars fame. And from Oink, I had a few to choose from. And it was really hard because I have 2 that I know I bought thinking I wanted to make shawls. And one of them has Stellina, so that's the hands down winner. So now I have projects to make using the Laser Sheep and the Oink yarns. And I already know what I'm going to do, and they should be very handily done by the time we get to CFR. This all happened because I have a big pile of Lisa Souza at my knees here in the cardboard carton of Doomy Doom Doom, in a beautiful foxglove color, in a beautiful oversized skein weight of, I believe it's merino, and it's worsted weight. I know it's worsted. I think it's a merino. Anyway, she sells these oversized skeins. They're bigger than the standard, like 200 yards. And I looked at that in such a beautiful pink color, and I realized that the only thing I could do was go to Megan Regan's Designs and make a yoke sweater with stranded color work. So I decided that I'm going to make her llama sweater, because really, shouldn't I at this point in my life, after 20 years of having camelids in the front yard? So that will be the Lisa Souza project. However, to do that, I said, do I have worsted weight yarns enough to complement this beautiful foxglove to make this pattern? And realized I really don't. I really don't. So I did buy 4 skeins from Knit Picks. I only needed 3. That's exciting. Why did I buy 4? Because I'm not sure. So I thought, well, these are inexpensive. I'm buying their Mighty Stitch, which is an acrylic wool blend, and it's like $3.29 right now, a skein. And I thought, yeah, I can afford to buy 4 skeins and then do the color matching when I see them actually up against the beautiful foxglove, which is going to be the vast majority of the sweater. So I'm very excited about that. So those are upcoming projects. But oh no, there's more. I also started making 2 more skirts based on Simplicity pattern 8605. And you can see the pictures. They are not yet hemmed. And I didn't put the links into Ravelry yet in my projects page, but I will. But there's so many skirts in this Simplicity pattern that I know you can go to my Ravelry page anyway and see them. So one is in the fabulous fabric. If you look at the pictures in the show notes, the first picture there, under the 2 more Simplicity 8605 entry, the first picture is just this drop-dead gorgeous fabric. Just gorgeous. And I got the last of the bolt, and boy, thereby hangs a tale. So, whenever I'm at Joann's and I find a fabric I like and I'm buying the end of the bolt, they will always offer you the end of the bolt for a discounted price. You know, how much of a discount can there be? You're buying like 4 or 5 inches. But I always buy it. And this week I was thinking how stupid I was to do that. No. Always do it. Always do it. This week was the proof. I decided to lay out the fabrics and to stack them, which I've done so many times in my life, which is you fold one fabric and lay it carefully, properly folded for the cutting on the bottom. Then you take the other fabric and you get my son to help you, and he will help you line up the second fabric, and you make it exactly parallel to the first, laying the center fold on the center fold of the bottom fabric, that sort of thing. And that's all great. So I did that, and he walked away, and I thought, wait a minute, am I sure that that bottom fabric, the gorgeous one with the forest animals, am I sure that's facing the same orientation as the hearts fabric lying on the top? And I thought, yeah, I have to check that. And then the boys were saying goodbye and going out on an errand. You bet I forgot to check. So I cut the first skirt piece. And I look at it and I realize the hearts are going one way and the animals are going the wrong way. The tops of the animals' heads are facing the bottom hem of the skirt. No. And before I had time to panic, I said, what would fix this? And I said, well, first of all, I need twice the length of the long skirt piece remaining on the floor. And I had it. So I said, okay, I can get those 2 pieces, those 2 skirts. Aren't I lucky? So then you can tell what I'm going to do. I took the pieces for the waistband and the pocket and just laid them on the piece that I'd cut out wrong, oriented the way I wanted them to be oriented. It worked. I got away with it. Moral of the story. I do tend to remember my patterns by their yardage, and I always tend to remember it in whole numbers. So I believe that waistband skirt probably only needs 2.5 yards, but I always buy 3. Yeah, baby. And then I bought the extra bolt, and that's why I got away with this trick. So I bought the extra end of the bolt, I should say. So just a word to the wise. You always buy a little more. It's just like buying knitting yarn. There's a beautiful thing about that. What you can't see is there's this huge heap on my desk of my fabric scraps from all these projects I've been doing. And it is there because I fully plan to take my cutting mat, which is sitting on my desk under my sewing machine right now, and I'm going to put it on the wooden floor, so there will be a mat down between the blade and the wood. I'm going to cut these babies into, I'm still thinking about it, either 1.5 or 2-inch wide stripes. And they're already washed and ironed and starched, so you just cut them into those stripes, and you have a ready-made pile of quilting scraps to make pillows or what have you. So that's the joy, that having extra fabric is not exactly a burden. Where it does become a burden is, are you keeping up with cutting those strips? No, I'm not. Well, you should. I mean, to be honest, I was taught this years ago in the 80s in a quilting class. Whenever you finish making something, you immediately take the leftovers and cut them into X inch wide strips, depending on the width you like to work in. And that's how you keep from having this big unsightly pile on your desk like I have right now. One other thing here. I keep saying I want to buy more of this fabric. I walked into my husband's study wearing the skirt unhemmed. He looked at the fabric and said, "Can you get more of that? We should make curtains or something. It's beautiful." I agree wholeheartedly. They would go great in my study. I've gone 20 years in this house with no curtains because I don't want to interfere with the incredible view of the valley I have. But for these, I would make an exception, let me tell you. And they would go beautifully with the paint job on my study walls. So I began to look for the fabric. I went all over Spoonflower. I could not find it. Strangely, the reason I went to Spoonflower, you may remember my skirt a few weeks ago with the dancing black cats, that I bought the fabric at Joann, and I bought the whole bolt, and I made 2 skirts out of it, and I'm so grateful because it's so adorable. Well, guess what? That's actually on Spoonflower, the dancing black cats. I was shocked to find it. Why was it in Joann Fabrics? I have no idea, but I'm so glad because Spoonflower, they were charging $19 a yard for cotton at Joann's. With the discount, I got it for something like $4 a yard. You bet I'm happy about that. So I went to Spoonflower and I searched for this pattern. Couldn't find it, but Linda Charvin, thank you, taught me how to use the Google app to search for an image by taking a picture of the image you want to search for and then loading it. By doing that, I found many knockoff lookalikes, and so did Linda. I eventually did find this, but everybody's out of it. And so, it's a beautiful fabric. Go have a look at it. In the meantime, you may notice I made the other skirt out of the hearts, and it looks a lot like the hearts that I made a full circle skirt out of, except that one is more orange-yellow toned. This one is more pink-blue-orange toned. And the flannel was overpriced, when I bought it for this skirt. So instead of buying 5 yards, I bought 3 yards because I didn't get as good a deal. But let me tell you, the 3-yard flannel skirts are beautiful creatures and wonderful to have around. So I got no regrets there. Meanwhile, my other projects, well, no love on the lane splitter, no love on the Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery. The Lady Eleanor, I am now in the middle, trumpet blast, of skein 10 of 11. So I have at least 53 inches so far. Actually, I think it's more like about 56 or 57. I'm very, very pleased. I really have to stop and start cutting up skein number 11 to make the fringe. And you can see one version of the fringe, the diagram from the book Scarf Style. I put it there. And I didn't originally like the fringe, but I'm leaving that option open for myself because the ends do look a little blunt. Now, I'm at a point now where I'm really counting down to that last row of triangles, but I actually want to give myself some time one evening and cut out the lengths. I think it's 52 lengths, 40 inches each for the fringe. And either it's going to be the kind of knotted fringe they show or just tassels. I don't know yet, but I need to do that. But it's a big hooray because we're drawing to the end. This is a stunningly beautiful project. The Lady Eleanor has always been a bell ringer and went viral when Scarf Style was first published, and you can see why. Meanwhile, before it occurred to me that I should look up the Laser Sheep and the Oink Pigment skeins of fingering weight that I had, I decided I needed something I could carry with me. So I started on a skein from Rock and String Yarn. Now, Rock and String no longer is trading under that name, and I do not remember her name. As soon as I can find it, I'll let you know. But anyway, that is the former Rock and Strings colorway, and the pattern is called Meow. And the picture doesn't do it justice. As it's growing, it's just one of the most gorgeous colorways I have ever seen. I've always been a fan of Rock and String, and so I have to try and find you her new name. But you can see the cuff, the 1x1 rib of the cuff of the Minerva's Meow socks, and I did put in a picture of the yarn in the skein because I wanted you to see the colorway. It's just beautiful. I do plan to finish these regardless of doing the Oink and Laser Sheep and Lisa Souza projects because I hate leaving things like this unfinished. Under that, you can see my favorite resources, and you can see all the links for all our vendors, except for Tina with her soaps. I don't have a link for that yet. Hint, hint, Tina. Dizzy Blondes, I'm not spinning. So let's move on to a strategy. First off, last week I talked about how to do a 911 call. And I really want to thank Drew Caitlin for her response, because she gave me a very supportive response on this, saying, yes, it really is challenging to get people to make the call when they need to make it. And it's a very important thing. Thank you, Drew Caitlin. I wanted to give you that, throw that bone, because it was really helpful what you were saying, because it cannot be undervalued that we have the ability to call 911 and get help, because if someone is seriously ill, we need to get them help. And, someone else said, well, what about phony calls, blah, blah, blah. As I said last week, I don't recommend you make a phony call, obviously. But also, you have to remember, they have to sort that out. We can't say, well, never call 911 because they don't like our calls. That doesn't make sense. Or never call 911 because someone has made a phony call. That doesn't even make sense. Okay, that we're doing it for a life-threatening emergency. Be very clear on this. If you have any doubt that it's life-threatening, you call it in. And you let them do the sorting. And they're very, very good at it. And please be very, very nice to those people, because let me tell you, being one of those operators is an incredibly hard job. I've had them in treatment. Please be very nice to them. Meanwhile, back at the strategy, we've been talking about various things, but I'm going back to mindfulness to talk about the difficulty of what I think of as letting the other shoe drop. I've had a lot of it this week. That sometimes when you are in a painful and difficult situation, sometimes you do have to just wait it out until something more develops. And again, this is probably in my head because of the whole 911 call thing. No, believe me, if you think there's a life-threatening emergency, you get help. You never stay alone in an emergency. That's always the first rule of safety for every profession that deals with emergencies. But there are situations where you can't do anything. You'd like to, but you can't. You don't have any power. And, that's kind of what we call living in the place of not knowing. And that sounds very contradictory to what we talk about with the ACT model of committed action. But that's actually more acceptance on the ACT hexagon than it would be committed action. That sometimes we must accept that we do not have power. We must live with frustration. We must live with helplessness. We must live with not knowing. So what do we do about that? Well, for one thing, we make a plan. So, for example, if I have a patient who's being cagey and I'm afraid they're thinking of self-harm, I don't get to read minds. All I can do is document that so far there's no indication that they're doing anything that's harmful. And I say this because you have patients who play that game with you. You have some kind of real pathology that people will do that with you. But, sometimes, too, you think they're keeping it from you and you're very worried about it. But, again, you can't read minds. You can't say this is really going to happen. You can't tell if they're toying with you. Sometimes you simply have to let the other shoe drop. You have to wait for something more to happen that gives you some solid ground on which to stand. And I'm sorry, because right now, mostly my head is full of patient events. I'm trying to think of something that's more in real time. Well, for example, your kid's in a bad mood, but they haven't done anything wrong. They're just being grumpy. You just have to let the other shoe drop. You have to either let them get in a bad mood to the point where you correct them because they're being unpleasant, or you have to let them get over it quietly without pushing or prodding. You just have to let the other shoe drop. You can't always make things work out. Sometimes we live in the not knowing, and it's a very, very uncomfortable place to be. So what do? As I said, you try to make a plan for any outcome you can think of. What will I do if this happens? What will I do if this other thing happens? How will I handle this? Now, when you're making a plan, of course, you know by now, that's nice because your brain likes that. It'll give you dopamine. And more important, you won't be giving yourselves cortisol, harmful hormones that degrade your cardiovascular system. So if you're just sitting around worrying because you're in the place of not knowing, then you're harming yourself, and you have to use thought stopping, thought substitution, distraction. And most of the time when we're using distraction, because we have painful thoughts, it falls into one of two categories. My painful thought is a memory about which I can do nothing, or my painful thought is predicting a negative future, which, by the way, you can do nothing about that either, but also it may not even come true. And so sometimes we have to simply stay where we are in the present without going back to a painful past or predicting a painful future. And we just have to tolerate the uncertainty. And if it's getting to you, you make a plan, or you can distract yourself in some way using thought stopping or thought substitution. But there is a reality out there that we cannot always be successfully active. Sometimes we must wait for the other shoe to drop. We must wait for something to happen that allows us to productively and knowingly move forward into a more committed action. The fluffy books, I should take Seinfeld off the list. I just got bored. That's horrible to say. One of my patients is telling me how he thought Seinfeld was still funny after all this time. I don't. Some of it is. Some of it's hilarious. I mean, there are some brilliant, brilliant episodes. But a lot of it I felt more like I'm trudging. So I kind of stopped on that. The Bridgerton books, I am now on book 4. And I believe it's Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. One of the most grip list titles she gives. She usually has pretty good titles. This one's a little bit awkward. I don't know what she could have called it. It's a good book, though. It's a lot of fun. It's basically year 3 of Bridgerton on Netflix without the race issues, and it's really very, very likable. And it's really a lot of what you wanted to have happen. The Bridgerton books are somewhat feminist in the fact that the women think like we think. Frankly, all the characters think like 21st and 20th century people. And so the women think in a more feminist frame of mind. They are more aware of their rights and their needs. And what they don't do is what I suspect women in the early 19th century did. They don't have this sort of subversive girl culture in quite the same way, because I don't think we can imagine that, because we have so much more freedom as women than they had. So let's be real. We can't be in the Regency. We can't really imagine Regency thought. We do our best. And this writer's doing a great job. However, of all the books, this is the feminist book where we have sort of spinster slapback. It's a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to season 3 on Netflix. I have to say, the way Netflix handled Eloise and the whole Lady Whistledown thing, don't like it. When you read the novels, you go, no, it doesn't work in the series the way it works in the novels. It makes Eloise very unlikable. It doesn't work the same way. But, they do what they have to do to make a television script roll along better, I guess. I don't write those scripts, so I don't know what you have to do to make them interesting. But I have to say, I'm enjoying the Bridgerton books. Am I reading anything else? No, I'm really not, and I haven't really seen any good movies. Oh, my husband, I stood through the last 10 minutes of The Iron Giant, and if you haven't seen that film, you really need to go see it. Cry every time. One of the most beautiful movies ever made, and really, really underpromoted. It's just a classic in animation. It's so brilliant and so humane. Okay, something I really like. Tea, Earl Grey, hot. The tin from Plum Deluxe. I didn't put a picture in, I'm sorry. At least not as I record this. Okay, it's true. They did a promotion. There is Picard Day, and it's in July, and I forget why it's the day it is. But anyway, on that day, they did a promotion where if you bought the tin, it's a big tin, like a 6 or 8 ounce tin, and it says tea Earl Grey hot on it in the same typescript that they use for the Next Generation. And if you bought that, they gave you a sample of the Plum Deluxe Picard tea, or Picard Black tea it's called. And it's Earl Grey with pecan flavoring. So, of course, got it. And it finally came. It was a bit delayed. I have to tell you, the tin is great. Now, the tea, I'll come back to that. But the tin is adorable. Meanwhile, I ran into Andrea Nelson Art on Instagram. That's andrea.nelson.art on Instagram. Andrea Nelson talks very quickly and comes across as a preschool teacher. Well, there's reasons for that. She was one, and she has a certain amount of anxiety, as she likes to talk about. And so she uses art to manage her anxiety. She is really wonderful, but she seems to me, not being an artist, so take this for what it's worth, Andrea seems to me to be especially gifted at watercolor. She makes watercolor easy and approachable. So I wrote to her and said, wow, I love your stuff. Would you like to come to Cognitive Fiber Retreat? She got excited, but then I realized she's on the East Coast, and I said, well, we don't do the plane fare. We don't pay our teachers. And I sort of said, I should stop here and make sure that I'm not in any way being rude or insulting here by saying, why don't you come and play with us and teach a class? So I wrote these nice things, and she wrote nice things back, but I backed off and I looked her up. I looked at her profile. Turns out she teaches watercolor painting on Skillshare, and she is trying to transition into being a full-time artist from being, I believe she says, a preschool teacher. I can't remember if it's special ed or preschool. And so, yeah, I thought, well, I really want to take her class. And so I wrote back to her and I just said, you can come as a guest. You don't have to teach anything. If you show up at CFR 2023, you're admission free. I just want you to be there. And I don't think she will because she's on the East Coast. But I have to tell you, I would love you to meet her because I would love to meet her. I'm so inspired by this woman's approach to art. She says knitting and spinning don't do much for her. She gets it out of her system with art. I'm cool with that, so much so that I put a picture in the show notes of 2 important things. One is the list of supplies you need for her class. And it's a very approachable list. I went to Joann Fabrics and I got everything I needed, including, if you look to the left, you will see the watercolor set I got, which is from a Dutch company called Talens, T as in Thomas, A-L-E, and as in Nancy, S as in Sam. But she says she uses a 24 color box, but a 12 color box is fine. She sells the supplies on her website. But I wanted to get this stuff and fool around a little bit. And also I want to take her class. I think she just looks like a wonderful, wonderful teacher of intro watercolor. So I went to Joann's, and of course I overbought. So I bought everything I needed, taking a lot of coupons with me, but I bought a lot of extra watercolor paper, and I bought extra mixing trays so I could just toss them, which is kind of stupid because watercolor is water soluble. You can just rinse them out and keep them, And I bought a bunch of brushes, and I bought good quality brushes, and then there's the little brush inside my watercolor set as well. But I bought a brush for, a wash brush. So sometimes you just sweep water across the paper in certain types of painting with watercolor. So I bought a broad wash brush for that. I think it's a 3/8 inch. And I bought a number 8 brush because she recommends it. And then I think it's a number 3 in that watercolor set. And so I'm very excited about this. Also, if you're going to buy it at Joann's, you can. There are also some online art suppliers, and I have to tell you, I think the prices are pretty equivalent. But I think you can go to Graby.com, G as in girl, R-A, B as in boy, I-E.com, and you can pretty much get your supplies for about the same as you'd get them at Joann's, but probably higher quality would be my guess on the paper. The watercolor paper, Strathmore's a good company, but they don't say the weight of the paper. It is cold pressed, so that's good. But most people talk about 140-pound weight paper. So I could only buy that in hugely expensive pads, and I didn't want to go there. I'm going to buy that online, but I bought some pads at Joann's so I can play around also. So this is very exciting. So I'm hoping to start this. So hopefully I will give you the links in the show notes later when I explore Grayby.com and some of the other sites. Of course, the minute I started watching Andrea's videos, my Instagram feed filled with ads for people who sell art supplies, which is making me very, very happy. Put a lid on it. The tea tastings continue. My latest bundle of teas from Plum Deluxe has arrived. Most of these are teas I'd already tried, like the insanely wonderful pear cinnamon and the Lady Grey, which Lady Grey is a seasonal. It will go away. But that's okay because I also got their normal grey. Their house grey, I believe, is creme brulee Earl Grey. I'm looking forward to that. How bad can that be? Meanwhile, I did try the Picard Black, which is pecan-flavored Earl Grey. Meh. The pecan, to me, is okay. The smell of the cup is not worth it. It's just meh. There's nothing special. It doesn't smell great. You don't inhale it and go, oh, I love that so much. Like I do with standard Earl Grey, I'll be honest. So nothing here in the bouquet. I'm here to tell you. The flavor, look at all those good ingredients. Orange peel, cinnamon chips, blue corn flour, bergamot oil. Too bad about that pecan essence. I think it competes too much with everything else that I like. Now, this has a pleasant enough flavor. It's just not great. Like, I'm never buying it again. I wouldn't go out of my way for this. I think you have to really like that pecan flavor. Does it taste like pecans? I'm not even sure what they taste like. I mean, I can remember the flavor as I sit here, but I'm not sure I know I'd want that in my Earl Grey. So the Picard Black, I really wouldn't write home about it. It's okay. I mean, I'm drinking it. I didn't throw it out, you know. But it's really just forgettable compared to things like the Lady Grey and any standard Earl Grey from a good maker. So, no, I'm not a big fan, as you can tell. Happily, I did get into a cranberry-flavored Earl Grey, and I'll get into that next week because I just don't have room. We have made it to the blather. Hooray! Captain and Queenie, oh my God, Queenie has fist-sized mats behind her ears. They're like handles. I'm so guilty. They're getting groomed on July 17th. I can't wait. The Hubs date, well, I have to say we passed the fire inspection thanks to the boys' hard work, taking out all the weeds. I'm so pleased. He's been painting. The place looks so much better. In my gardening area, well, again, our pollinators that I wanted to plant, they were delayed because the butterfly milkweed, the company just didn't have a good quality crop, so they're waiting for another crop. So they are supposed to arrive on July 19th. Well, you know, when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. I bought myself some gear from farmersdefense.com. The link is in the show notes. It's under the word gear. I didn't put Farmers Defense. I bought those same beautiful arm protectors that the lassie in the photo, you know, the thin woman, who I might prefer to have her body shape, but nothing else. I mean, she's nice looking, but she ain't me, let's face it. I'd like to look like me. But she is wearing the beautiful protectors that I got. These go right up your fingers. There's a thumb hole. And I got the large, extra large. I measured my bicep, and I used their size chart right bang on that the fit is exactly what they say it will be. So these things are fabulous. I just got them today. I also ordered their very reasonably priced cut-proof garden gloves. I wanted lady gloves. And again, I measured my hand. They ran perfectly true to size. What a good fit. So I got these today. So hopefully I'm going to put on some leggings and go out there and do a little bit of weeding. I have to put on a face mask as well. And we will see if I survive, if the pollen doesn't kill me. But hey, that's why the good Lord made Benadryl. But I'm very pleased, very, very pleased with my sleeves and my gloves from Farmers Defense. Gloria, well, so the shoots from Gloria, I planted them a week ago. It looks like one made it, maybe two. Hard to tell, but we're trying. I'm watering it every day because the water just runs through that container. But we will see if that doesn't work. The other interesting thing is I realized we were driving yesterday down our fence row along our road, And I realized suddenly there were these two beautiful plants of little white flowers that looked not so much like wildflowers, but they did look like local pollinators. And then I stopped and looked carefully. They were planted every other fence post. And I went, oh my goodness, the people who own this, somebody tried to start plants on the fence line to be pretty. And it's all gone wild. So my husband's saying he's going to go out there and weed whack that. I hope so. But meanwhile, I used my plant identifier to look them up. They are called California buckwheat. They are a pollinator. And they are basically something you can buy at a garden shop, to which my husband said, no, look, they're wild all over the place. Yes, we have a huge one on our northernmost fence line. I mean, it's like a bush. And I looked at it and said, oh my goodness. And he spared it when he did all the weed cutting up there. He left it alone because it is beautiful. And I said, oh my God, I'm buying plants. I could just go dig these up. He said, you could dig them up anywhere. Sure enough, the ones on our fence line, well, they didn't fill the fence line. They got blown downwind and they filled the neighbor's unused acreage. That they're all over the place down there and they're all blooming and they're beautiful. So I am thinking that I may get bold and go and cut a few of these guys and try to propagate them or just dig them up and propagate them in our yard, because free, incredibly beautiful garden plants that are pollinators, they do exactly what I want them to do. They grow to exactly a good height. They bush out. They reseed. They're perennial. It doesn't get better than that. So I'm pretty excited. So now what do we have here on the agenda? Aside from my sewing project, my knitting project, we have upcoming crochet projects with the laser sheep and the oink pigments. Plus we got a new sweater. Oh yeah, plus we got 2 skirts to finish. Oh yeah, plus we got the gardening. Plus we got the water painting class. Wow, I am running in so many directions. And it's a nice thing. I'm inspired. A teenage patient of mine said to me, quite knocked me off my feet. He said, I want to learn a new skill every summer. And I thought, wow, that's wonderful. And realized, so do I, kid, so do I. I gardened years ago when I lived in Southeast Washington State, and it's beautiful to go back to it. I've always wanted to water paint, and I have to stifle all the voices of grouchy nuns in primary school who made fun of my attempts at art. You know, adults who put down kids' creative ventures should just have a sock stuffed in their mouth, seriously. The damage those people do. Do you realize how good, as our friend Andrea Nelson points out, artistic creativity is for depression, for anxiety, and yet we have jerks tormenting children or making them feel not good enough with their art. And Sister Madeline, God rest your soul, she used to always say to me, you have more of an artist in you than you know. But it is amazing how many people stifle kids' love for art. And now we have an epidemic of anxiety in America. Well, the pandemic had something to do with that. But what disturbs me is we do not seem to have the resources to fight it because we're too busy telling each other we're not good enough in our creative ventures. Oi! You have no idea how many years I did not knit or create because I bought into that. Okay, well, there's my bitter little story. Let's get on to the calendar, shall we? Because I'm recovered now. It's all good. I'm great. I feel great. The Cognitive Fiber Retreat, of course, is on the calendar for Saturday, November 11th, 9 to 5 minimum. But you know, I'll be there Friday night, and I'll be staying over till Sunday morning. And if we should all happen to go to a local eatery, there's a lot of good breakfast places for Sunday morning, let me tell you, but we'll have to go early or we'll be in a long line. Or maybe I should make some phone calls because we have some really good breakfast places in Santa Clarita, and I think we should all adjourn there, fill the place, and talk about how the retreat went, as we always did in years gone by. Also, I will be at the Evolution of Psychotherapy conference in Anaheim, California at the Anaheim Convention Center. I'm not sure if I will be there the whole time. It is December 12th through 17th. I am going to be there for the weekend at least because I'm using points from my points account. And I'm really excited to be doing it. I really like being there. It's fun. I think I'm at the Sheraton right by the convention center. And it just makes me happy. I'm always happy at Evolution. Minerva gets the last word. You can see her lying there, curled up on one of my t-shirt quilts. And she is looking up at me and saying, what? What? Did you have a question? And that's what I would say after this long rambling all over the place. podcast episode going in so many directions. Do you have a question? Well, you know how to contact me. You can get me on Ravelry. You can get me on the blog, cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. You can get me in the Ravelry group for our show, or by just RavMail if you must. All right. So if you have a question, Minerva says, now is the time to ask it. I really want to thank Laser Sheep and Oink for checking in and letting me know that, like Lisa Souza, they are definitely on for this. I am so pleased. Tina, if you want to let me know how you're doing, if you want to let me know if you're still going to do this and still going to vend for us. Tina, I also have to tell you, you are such a part of CFR. If, you're in. You're in. I don't care if we go to 51 people. Tina, I owe you so big for so many years. So, if you're having problems getting the vending together, or if I can help you, like if you want to ship soap to me and I'll deliver it to the hotel, if it's easier for you to just box it up and send it, there will be no petty theft. But boy, what a temptation, let me tell you. But anyway, if you need any help with that, Tina, let me know. That goes for all the vendors. If there's anything I can do that will smooth the path, by all means, let me know. Okay? But in the meantime, I know Alpenglow is coming. I haven't heard much recently, but I have no question she'll show. That's my own secret knowledge. And you too, by the way. If you find for some reason you can't vend, you're always in. I owe you so much for all the years past. You and your mom, while we're on that subject. So anyway, Alpenglow, get your butt down here. And Tina, same thing. If there's any way I can help you, but there's no way I would ever be able to shut you out of a CFR. So don't even ask that question, but let me know. Right now, I've got you down as a vendor. Looking forward to it. Meanwhile, everybody, do not forget, take care of all the health stuff. Get your shots. Get your vaccines. Do what you got to do. I would put a mask or two on the side in case we need it. We don't know where we will be in November with COVID. So, think about your vaccines. Think about your masks. Remember, you're going to be in a public space. Remember, we are all enlightened people, but not necessarily everybody in that hotel will be. So remember to keep safe. And that leads me to what I would always tell you, which is everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.